Arendt's thesis, that for a long time had been undisputed in the West and uncritically repeated time and again, that sought to prove the unbreakable attraction, in spite of everything, between communist totalitarianism and Nazi totalitarianism. Using these words, the only man for whom Hitler has unconditional respect was the brilliant Stalin. Moreover, we know from Khrushchev's speech to the 20th Party Congress that Stalin trusted in only one man, which was Hitler. It is so evident that, despite all the warnings, he refused to believe that Hitler had broken the treaty until the very end. To confirm this, Arendt again cites the secret report, or to be more precise, the version of Khrushchev's speech provided by the American State Department, 924, against that affirmation, which was based on an evidently politicized speech that was certainly not concerned with historical rigor. One could counter with the well-documented analysis according to which in post-World War II Hungary and Eastern Europe, Stalin only trusted in Jewish cadre, who were in fact called upon to construct the framework for a new state apparatus, supra, ch. 5:10. As one can see, the antithesis with respect to Hitler couldn't be more clear. But let's dwell on the fragility of the ideological theme treasured by Arendt and ruling ideology. Recently a reversal of positions has been witnessed. A few years ago, authoritative and ideologically relentless anti-communist scholars insisted on depicting Stalin as an insatiable expansionist, ready at the opportune moment to attack Germany itself, with whom it maintains a pact of non-aggression. To make that case, they specifically cited Stalin's speech to the military academy graduates. In order to be brief, I'll cite the summary found in Dimitrov's diary: "Our peace and security policy is at the same time a policy in preparation for war. There's no defense without offense. It's necessary to prepare for war." 925. It's May 5 of 1941. The same day that Stalin meets personally with the highest officials of the party and state, in evident preparation for open battle with the Third Reich. The substantial development of Soviet military industry had been promoted by Stalin in preparation for an offensive war, against which Hitler sought to defend. 926. That thesis, incessantly pushed by historical revisionism, can be easily refuted by referring to something cited by an author who is among the most prominent members of that historical and ideological current. By the beginning of May, 1941, General Antonescu, who will end up taking power in Romania, informs his German allies that the factories around Moscow had received the order to relocate their machinery to the country's interior. 927. Moreover, the Nazis were desperately looking for a casus belli. The spy chief, Admiral Canaris, writes in his diary, "General Jodl informed me that they are very concerned by the unusual and forgiving Soviet behavior in relation to us, and partly joking, added if those individuals continue to be so accommodating and letting everything go, it will have to be you who organizes an incident that starts the affair." 928. Debunking revisionist historians' latest weapon of argument, this testimony unequivocally proves who is the aggressor. Secondly, it clarifies that it was Stalin's very own behavior, condemned by Khrushchev, that made the Third Reich nervous. The new accusation against Stalin found its immediate consecration in the mass media that, with the aim of giving it more credibility, didn't hesitate to bring up the speech from August 19, 1939, a prominent Sovietologist commenting with righteous indignation, while he prepared to send the loyal Molotov to Berlin to finish the non-aggression pact, Stalin had already elaborated, with repugnant cynicism, a plan for aggression and Sovietization of all of Europe, including Germany, at the opportune moment. 929. In reality, this is a serious historical falsehood, supra, ch. 1:3. But that isn't the important point. The revelation of this new treacherous act by Stalin could have been the moment to reconsider the thesis developed by Arendt, with credit also to Khrushchev's report, about the close relationship between the two highest incarnations of totalitarianism. But none of that took place. Historians on the concentration-area universe rightly denounced the subsequent severity experienced in the Gulag and the super-exploitation of the prisoners that reaches its horrible apex after the breakneck growth of the economic plans of 1940 to 1941, when Soviet leadership, in preparation for war, ignore any other consideration in accelerating to the maximum the completion of plans of great strategic and economic importance, like, for example, the construction of airports, aircraft factories and industries essential for the war effort. 930 In light of this, the commonplace accusation made by Arendt becomes ever more grotesque, and yet it continues to be obsessively repeated. It's necessary to always prove that Stalin had blind trust in Hitler. The ruling ideology, therefore, easily makes use of the most contradictory statements and accusations. What matters is that they are defamatory. The tendency to drift from history and into political mythology is clear. The obligation to demonize, for whatever motive, manifests itself in other fields. Nowadays the black legend of Stalin's anti-Semitism is unchallenged. But we're not without a perspective that's diametrically opposed. There's the research by a journalist, an American Jew, who speaks of Stalin's fondness toward Jews, to whom he entrusts the management of the concentration camps where the Germans destined to be expelled from Poland are held. Thus, those who survived the final solution can avenge themselves in a terrible way and become the executioners of their executioners, all thanks to the Soviet dictator's cunning and perfidy. 931 He is also accused, in a book by an author closely associated with the military of the German Federal Republic, of having circulated war propaganda about gas chambers and the plan for the total extermination of the Jewish population by the Third Reich, with the aim of discrediting their enemies. 932 It's evidently in total contrast to the understanding of Stalin as an anti-Semite which is still widely accepted. Finally, it's also worthwhile to observe how the subject of Stalin's paranoia was often handled in a contradictory way. One historian, who stands out for making that diagnosis, nevertheless stresses the role Beria was to have in the Soviet leader's death. 933 Certainly, one could say he had ended up being a victim of a climate he himself created. The fact would remain that, at least starting from a certain moment, the threat was real and no longer the product of a sickness-induced fantasy. In addition, those who accuse Stalin of being paranoid are sometimes figures and authors who, without providing any proof, claim he is responsible for the death of his closest collaborators, like Kirov and Zhdanov. Do they not resort here to the same attitude for which they condemn the dictator? But those questions and those problems aren't even raised. What's important is to highlight, in any way possible, the infamy of the communist and Oriental despot.